1 year had passed since the Battle of Earth. The galaxy looked completely different now. Where the Vormak Empire once ruled 17 worlds, the flag of Earth now flew. The blue and green banner waved on crystal cities, on space stations, on mining worlds that produced wealth beyond imagination. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in what used to be the Vormak High Council chamber. The crystal walls that once showed the glory of the Vormak now displayed images from human space. Children playing in parks on Mars that hadn't existed a year ago. New hospitals on Earth's colonies, built with Vormak medical technology. Ships carrying food and medicine to species that had been struggling for centuries. The chamber doors opened and former High Chancellor Kelvak entered. He moved slowly, his crystalline body dull and cracked. He wasn't a prisoner, but he wasn't free, either. He worked as a translator now, helping humans understand the millions of documents in the Vormak archives. "You asked to see me, Admiral?" Kelvak said. His voice no longer carried the arrogance it once had. Jake turned to face him. "Yes, I wanted you to see something." He gestured to the main screen. It showed a planet, green and blue like Earth. "Do you recognize it?" Kelvak looked confused. "No. Should I?" "This was Qatari Prime," Jake said. "The homeworld of the Qatari species. Your people destroyed it 300 years ago, stripped it bare and left it a dead rock." Kelvak said nothing. What could he say? "We rebuilt it," Jake continued, "using your terraforming technology and the star creator we built from your weapon. It took 6 months, but Qatari Prime lives again. The Qatari are going home today." On the screen, ships were landing on the planet. Thousands of Qatari emerged, touching soil their species hadn't seen for 3 centuries. Many were crying, their insect-like bodies shaking with emotion. "Why show me this?" Kelvak asked. "Because I want you to understand," Jake said. "We could have destroyed you. We could have done to you what you did to them. Instead, we chose to build, to heal, to fix what you broke. That's the difference between humans and Vormak." Dr. Carl Williams entered the chamber, followed by Amy Foster. Both had changed in the past year. Carl's hair was completely gray now, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Amy wore the uniform of a sector commander, the youngest in human history. "The Star Creator is ready for another run," Carl reported. "We can build 3 new systems this month. The Melody have requested an ocean world in the Perseus Arm. The Vash want a forest planet near their current colonies." "Approved," Jake said. "What about the medical ships?" 40 are operational," Amy answered. "They're using Vormak healing technology to cure diseases across the galaxy. Species that have suffered for millennia are being healed, for free." Jake nodded. This was what victory looked like. Not destruction, but creation. Not revenge, but justice. A message arrived from Earth. President Chen, Lisa Chen's sister, appeared on screen. "Admiral, the Council is ready for your report." Jake straightened his uniform. Once a month he reported to Earth's leadership about the state of their new territories. It was important that power remained accountable, even in victory. "Madam, President," Jake began, "all 17 former Vormak worlds are stable. Production is up 300%. The freed species have established their own governments and are thriving. The Zalathi territories are peaceful and productive." "Any resistance?" the President asked. "Minor incidents only. Some Vormak tried to sabotage a factory last week. They were caught and sentenced to community service. They're teaching Vormak technology to human engineers now. And the galactic community? Watching us carefully," Jake admitted. "But trade is up 500%. Seems everyone wants to be friends with the species that defeated the Vormak." After the call ended, Jake walked through the Crystal City. Humans and aliens worked side by side. Vormak children played with human children in the parks. They were growing up in a different world than their parents knew. Commander Lisa Chen, now governor of Sector 3, sent him a message. "Jake, Yuko, need to see this." She transmitted a file. It was a message from deep space, from a species humanity had never encountered. They had heard about Earth's victory and liberation of the slaves. They wanted to establish contact. "How many is that now?" Jake asked. 14 new species this month, Lisa replied. Word is spreading. Earth is seen as a protector of young civilizations. In the science district, teams of humans and freed slaves worked together. They were reverse engineering Vormak technology, improving it, making it serve peace instead of war. A Qatari scientist had just discovered a way to increase crop yields by 1,000%. A Melody engineer had designed water purifiers that could clean entire oceans. Amy Foster sat in her command center, monitoring the vast network that controlled former Vormak space. Her screens showed millions of data points. Factories producing medicine, ships carrying food, mining drones gathering resources that would benefit everyone, not just the powerful. An alert appeared on her screen. A small species on the edge of known space was under attack by raiders. Without hesitation, Amy dispatched a human fleet to help. The ships that had once threatened Earth now protected the weak. On Earth, the changes were even more dramatic. Cities that had been overcrowded were now spacious with technology from the Vormak, making vertical farms and floating platforms possible. Disease was almost extinct, eliminated by alien medical technology. Every human had access to education that included galactic history, alien languages, and advanced science. Children grew up learning about the betrayal and victory, but they also learned about mercy and justice. They learned that strength meant protecting others, not enslaving them. The Vormak were adapting to their new reality. Without their technology advantage, they had to learn to work with their hands. Many found it satisfying. A Vormak named Telex had become famous for his handcrafted art, something his species hadn't done in thousands of years. We were prisoners of our own power, Telex told a human journalist. We forgot how to create with our hands, how to think without computers. In a strange way, you freed us too. Not all Vormak felt this way. Some still harbored resentment. But their children were different. Growing up alongside humans, learning about cooperation instead of domination, they were becoming something new. The Zalathi had integrated even better. Their warrior culture respected strength, and humans had proven strongest. Many Zalathi had joined human organizations, serving as soldiers, pilots, and engineers. They were eager students of human military tactics. Admiral Rodriguez, now retired, had started a military academy on Mars. Students from 20 species came to learn. Not how to conquer, but how to defend. Not how to enslave, but how to protect. The galaxy is dangerous, he told his students. There are always those who would take from the weak. We stand against them. Human, Qatari, Melody, Vash, even Zalathi and Vormak. We stand together. Jake received a final report for the day. It was from the edge of human space, where scouts had discovered something troubling. Another empire, far larger than the Vormak, was expanding toward the galaxy. They enslaved every species they met. So it begins again, Jake said to himself. But this time was different. Humanity wasn't alone. They had allies, freed slaves who would fight beside them. They had technology that surpassed most species. And most importantly, they had learned the hard lesson. Trust, but verify. Be kind, but be strong. Jake called a meeting of all sector commanders. The room filled with humans and aliens, all wearing Earth uniforms. The Qatari commander clicked his mandibles in greeting. The Melody commander's water suit bubbled with anticipation. Even a few reformed Zalathi were present. We have a new threat, Jake announced. The Hegemony Empire. They have 1,000 worlds and see all other species as inferior. They're coming this way. What do we do? Someone asked. Jake smiled. It was the same cold smile he had worn when the Vormak betrayed them. We do what humans do. We prepare. We defend. And if they try to enslave anyone under our protection, we take everything they have. The room erupted in agreement. Human and alien voices united in purpose. The betrayal that was meant to destroy humanity had instead created something stronger. An alliance not of convenience, but of shared values. A power that protected instead of conquered. As the meeting ended, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, the Hegemony Empire was coming. They probably thought the galaxy would be easy prey. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Humanity had been betrayed once. They had turned that betrayal into strength. Now they stood guard over the galaxy, protectors instead of conquerors. The Vormak had created their own downfall by teaching humans the harsh rules of space. The lesson was simple: betray humanity, lose everything. Stand with humanity, gain everything. The galaxy had learned this lesson. Soon, the hegemony would learn it too. The Vormak High Chancellor stood in his crystal palace on the Vormak homeworld. His name was Kelvak, and he had ruled for 300 years. He had never lost a war. He had never even imagined losing one. Now he watched the impossible happen on his screens. His mighty fleet was gone, 3,000 ships reduced to floating metal and crystal. The humans, the primitive humans who were supposed to become slaves, had won. The message from the survivors was clear: complete defeat. This cannot be, he said to his advisors. The humans are nothing. They have only been in space for 50 years. We have ruled for 10,000 years. But the numbers didn't lie. The images didn't lie. His fleet was destroyed. And now something worse was happening. Every computer screen in his palace turned blue. Then a human face appeared. It was Jake Morrison. "High Chancellor Kelvak," Jake said. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. You tried to enslave my people. You failed. Now we're coming for everything you have." Kelvak tried to respond, but his communication system wasn't working. He could only watch and listen. "Right now," Jake continued, "our virus is spreading through your entire network. Every Vormak world, every station, every ship. You built a beautiful system connecting everything. Thank you for that. It makes this much easier." On 17 Vormak worlds, the same thing happened at the same moment. Every computer system stopped obeying the Vormak. Doors wouldn't open without human permission. Ships wouldn't fly. Weapons wouldn't fire. Even the food dispensers stopped working. Amy Foster sat at her console on the Retribution, now the most powerful woman in the galaxy. She controlled the entire Vormak civilization with her keyboard. "I have access to everything," she told Jake. "Their banks, their factories, their defense systems. It all belongs to us now." "Can they break free?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "I've locked them out of their own systems. They can't even turn on a light without our permission. They're trapped on their own worlds." Jake nodded. "Good. Now for Phase 2. The mining drones." The Vormak had thousands of automated mining drones. Each one was the size of a city, designed to tear apart asteroids and planets for resources. They had been the key to Vormak wealth for millennia. Now they had new orders. Dr. Carl Williams had reprogrammed them. Instead of sending resources to Vormak worlds, they would send everything to Earth. Iron, gold, rare elements that Earth had never seen. It would all flow to humanity now. "The drones are responding," Carl reported. "Estimated time until first shipment reaches Earth, 2 weeks." But Jake wasn't satisfied with just taking their resources. He wanted more. "Show me their history files," he ordered Amy. Everything about their past conquests. What they found made everyone sick. The Vormak had done this before, many times. They had betrayed and enslaved 12 other species over the centuries. Some were extinct now. Others still lived as slaves. "On Vormak mining worlds, we're freeing them," Jake said immediately. "All of them." Lisa Chen organized the liberation fleets. Human ships, along with captured Vormak vessels, went to every slave camp. They found 3 species still alive. The Qatari, insect-like beings who had been slaves for 300 years. The Melody, water creatures whose oceans had been drained. The Vash, small furry creatures used for dangerous mining work. When the human ships arrived, the slaves couldn't believe it. They had given up hope long ago. Now humans were opening their cages, giving them food, offering them ships to go wherever they wanted. An old Qatari, his shell cracked from years of labor, asked a human soldier, "Why? Why help us?" The soldier, a young woman named Mary, replied simply, "Because it's right." and because we know what it's like to nearly lose everything. Back on the Vormak homeworld, panic was spreading. Without their automated systems, the Vormak were helpless. They had relied on machines for everything. They didn't know how to grow food without automated farms. They didn't know how to purify water without their computer-controlled systems. High Chancellor Kelvak sent a message to Earth, begging for mercy. Jake received it in his ready room. The once proud alien leader was on his knees, his crystalline body dull with fear. "Please," Kelvak begged, "we will die without our systems. Billions of Vormak will starve." Jake considered this. He could let them die. It would be justice for all the species they had destroyed. But humans were better than that. "You won't die," Jake told him. "We'll keep your life support running. You'll have food and water. But that's all. Everything else belongs to us now." "For how long?" Kelvak asked. "Forever," Jake replied. "Or until you earn trust again. That might take 1,000 years, maybe more." The Zalati Empire received a different message. Admiral Rodriguez handled their surrender personally. The Zalati were pragmatic. They understood power. They accepted humanity's terms without argument. "Your empire is dissolved," Rodriguez told them. "Your worlds will be governed by Earth administrators. Your military is disbanded. Your ships are now ours. In return, we won't destroy you like we did the Vormak." The Zalathi leader, a creature called Zektor, bowed his head. "We accept. What must we do?" "First, you'll return everything you've stolen from other species. Then you'll work to repair the damage you've caused. Consider it community service on a galactic scale." Within weeks, the transformation was incredible. Human administrators arrived on former Vormak and Zalathi worlds. They found treasures beyond imagination. Technology that could cure any disease. Ships that could travel between galaxies. Energy sources that could power entire solar systems. But they also found records of crimes. The Vormak and Zalathi had destroyed dozens of young civilizations. They had strip-mined beautiful worlds. They had caused extinctions for profit. "We need to make this right," Jake said in a meeting with Earth's leaders. "We can't bring back the dead, but we can make sure it never happens again." They established new laws. No species could enslave another. No world could be strip-mined. Without careful environmental protection, technology must be shared, not hoarded. Any species that broke these laws would face what the Vormak faced: complete loss of control. Amy Foster had become something like a galactic administrator. She managed the vast network that controlled former Vormak space. Every day she received requests. Could this factory produce medicine instead of weapons? Could this ship be used for exploration instead of war? She approved them all. "We're rebuilding their entire civilization," she told Jake, "making it serve life instead of conquest." The freed slave species were given special status. The Qatari received 3 worlds of their own, beautiful planets that the Vormak had been saving for themselves. The Melody were given water worlds with deep oceans. The Vash received forest planets where they could live in peace. Each species swore alliance to Earth, not because they were forced to, but because humans had freed them. Humanity had done what no other species had managed: defeated the Vormak and freed their slaves. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Every major species in the galaxy was there. They were terrified. In less than a month, humans had gone from near slaves to controlling 3 sectors of space. "What are humanity's intentions?" the council speaker asked. Maria Rodriguez, Sam's daughter and Earth's new ambassador, stood before them. "We want peace and fair trade, but let me be clear. Any species that tries to betray or attack us will share the Vormak's fate. We've learned the galaxy's lessons. Strength is respected. Weakness is exploited. We choose strength." Some species complained that humans were being too harsh. The Altarians suggested that the Vormak deserved a second chance. Maria showed them the recording of the Vormak planning to separate human children from their parents. She showed them the slave camps. She showed them the destroyed worlds. "Would you give them a second chance if they had done this to you?" she asked. The room was silent. They all knew the answer. On Earth, the first shipment of resources from the mining drones arrived. It was more wealth than humanity had ever seen. Enough to rebuild every city. Enough to colonize 100 worlds. Enough to ensure no human would ever be poor again. But Jake wasn't celebrating. He stood in his office looking at reports from across the former Vormak Empire. There was so much work to do. So many wrongs to right, so many species to help. "Sir," Amy said, entering his office. "We found something. The Vormak had a secret project. They were building something huge. A weapon that could destroy stars." Jake read the report. The weapon was 90% complete. If the Vormak had finished it, they could have threatened entire galaxies. "Destroy it," he ordered. "Actually," Amy said, "I have a better idea. What if we complete it but change its purpose? Instead of destroying stars, it could create them. We could build new solar systems for species that lost their homes." Jake smiled. It was the first real smile he'd had since this all began. "Do it. Turn their weapon of destruction into a tool of creation. That's the human way." The button clicked under Amy Foster's finger. For 1 second, nothing happened. The Vormak fleet continued moving toward Earth. Their weapons continued charging. Ambassador Vekral's face was still on the screen, waiting for Earth's surrender. Then, the first Vormak ship started spinning. It was a small destroyer on the edge of their fleet. It suddenly turned hard to the left, its engines firing at full power. It slammed into the ship next to it. Both ships crumpled like paper, their crystalline hulls shattering into millions of pieces. "It's working," Amy whispered. Then louder, "It's working!" Across the Vormak fleet, chaos erupted. Navigation computers showed random destinations. Some showed the center of the sun. Others showed deep space. Ships began moving without their crew's control, crashing into each other in a deadly dance. On the Vormak flagship, Ambassador Vekral screamed at his crew, "What is happening? Stop this!" But his crew couldn't stop it. Their own screens were showing impossible things. According to their computers, they were already inside Earth's sun. According to their weapon systems, every other Vormak ship was an enemy. According to their life support, they needed to vent all atmosphere immediately. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Retribution. The mighty Vormak fleet, 3,000 ships strong, was destroying itself. But he knew this was just the beginning. "All ships," he commanded. "Phase 2, fire modified missiles." The human fleet, only 400 ships, opened fire. The missiles Dr. Carl Williams had modified streaked through space. They were simple weapons, almost primitive by galactic standards. But they were designed for one thing: to hit shields at the exact frequency that would cause them to collapse. The first missile hit a Vormak battleship. The ship's shields flickered, turned bright purple, then disappeared completely. The second missile hit the now defenseless ship and tore it in half. "Their shields are failing across the fleet," someone reported, but the Vormak weren't helpless. Even with their computers going crazy, some crews managed to fire back manually. Laser beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human fleet. 3 human ships exploded in the first minute, then 5 more. "We're still outnumbered," Lisa Chen said. "Even with the virus, they have too many ships." Jake nodded. "Time for Phase 3. Signal the Zalathi." The Zalathi fleet had been waiting, behind the Vormak, ready to enslave Earth's colonies once the main battle was won. They had watched their allies' fleet fall into chaos. Now they were trying to retreat, to jump to hyperspace and escape this madness. The first Zalathi ship activated its jump drive. Space bent around it as it prepared to leave the solar system. Then it hit the gravitational mine. The mine had been floating there for weeks, invisible and patient. When the Zalathi ship tried to jump, the mine activated. It created a gravity field so intense that it pulled the ship apart, atom by atom. In less than a second, a massive warship became a cloud of metal dust. The other Zalathi ships detected the destruction. They tried different jump points, but every exit from the solar system had been mined. They were trapped. "Zalathi fleet," Jake broadcast. "You have 2 choices: Surrender now, or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to decide. While the Zalathi panicked, the battle with the Vormak continued. The virus was causing more and more damage. Some Vormak ships were firing on their own allies. Others were flying in circles, their engines stuck at full power. A few had vented all their atmosphere, their crews suffocating in the vacuum of space. But not all were affected. About 500 Vormak ships had somehow avoided the virus. Maybe they had been offline when it activated. Maybe their systems were different. It didn't matter. 500 ships were still more than the humans had. Ambassador Vekral's ship was one of the survivors. His face appeared on screen again, but now his crystalline features were cracked with rage. You dare attack us? You primitive creatures. We will burn your planet to ash. His ship's main weapon began to charge. It was aimed directly at Earth. The weapon was powerful enough to crack the planet's crust to kill billions in one shot. Jake turned to Amy. Can you stop him? Amy shook her head. His ship is offline. The virus can't reach it. Then we do this the old way, Jake said. He turned to his pilot. Ram them. Sir? The pilot asked. You heard me. Full speed. Ram them. The Retribution surged forward. It was smaller than the Vormak flagship, but it was moving fast. Vekral saw them coming and tried to move his ship. But the Retribution adjusted course. At the last second, Jake gave one more order. Fire everything. Every weapon on the Retribution fired at once. Missiles, lasers, even the point defense guns. They all hit the same spot on Vekral's ship. AudioBook's crystalline hull cracked, then shattered. The Retribution plowed through the gap, tearing the Vormak flagship in half. Jake was thrown from his chair as the ships collided. Alarms screamed. Lights failed. For a moment he thought they were all going to die. Then the emergency power kicked in. Jake pulled himself up and looked at the screen. Vekral's ship was in pieces. The weapon that would have destroyed Earth was floating debris. Sir, Lisa Chen called out, the Zalathi are surrendering. It was true. Every Zalathi ship was powering down weapons and shields. They had seen what happened to the Vormak. They had realized they were trapped. They chose life over death, but the battle wasn't over. The remaining Vormak ships were regrouping. They had figured out that staying offline protected them from the virus. They were preparing for a traditional battle. How many? Jake asked. 412 Vormak ships still fighting, Lisa reported. We have 320. It would be a fair fight now. No tricks, no viruses. Just ship against ship. Jake was fine with that. Humans had been fighting fair fights for thousands of years. All ships attack pattern Delta, he ordered. The human fleet moved as one. They had practiced this. While serving with the Vormak, they had learned their attack patterns, their strategies. Now they used that knowledge against them. The Vormak attacked in their traditional formation, a sphere designed to bring maximum firepower on a single point. But the humans didn't give them a single point. They scattered, reformed, scattered, again. It was chaos, but organized chaos. Dr. Carl Williams watched from Lunar Command. His modified weapons were working perfectly. Every hit on a Vormak ship caused massive damage. The crystalline hulls that were supposed to be indestructible cracked like glass when hit at the right frequency. On Earth, people watched the battle on every screen. They saw their small fleet fighting against impossible odds. They saw ships exploding, both human and Vormak. They saw heroes being born and dying in the darkness of space. The battle raged for 3 hours. Ships died on both sides. The Retribution, damaged from ramming Vekral's flagship, fought with half its weapons offline, but Jake and his crew kept fighting. Amy Foster had found something new. The Vormak ships that had gone offline to avoid the virus had to communicate somehow. They were using an old backup system, something from before their main network. It was primitive, but it worked. I can hack it, she said, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. Give me 5 minutes. You have 3, Jake said. Amy's fingers flew over her console. Around her, the bridge sparked and smoked from damage, but she didn't stop. She found the backup network. She broke their encryption. She was in. This time, she didn't use a virus. She did something simpler. She sent a single command. Emergency shutdown. 80 Vormak ships suddenly went dark. Their engines stopped. Their weapons went offline. They floated helplessly in space. Now, Jake ordered. The human fleet concentrated fire on the helpless ships. One by one, they exploded. The Vormak tried to bring their systems back online, but it took time. Time they didn't have. The remaining Vormak ships, seeing their comrades destroyed, did something unprecedented. They surrendered. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, the Vormak asked for mercy. Jake looked at the battlefield. Hundreds of ships floated in pieces. Human and Vormak debris mixed together in a cloud of destruction. But Earth was safe. The planet still turned. Billions still lived. "Sir," Lisa said, "the Galactic Council is requesting communication." Jake laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. Now they want to talk? After watching us nearly get enslaved? But he accepted the communication. The screen filled with alien faces. Species Jake had never seen before. They all looked shocked. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated a fleet 10 times their size. The council's speaker, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke carefully. "Humans, what you have done today changes everything. The Vormak Empire has stood for 10,000 years. You destroyed them in 3 hours." "We didn't destroy them," Jake corrected. "We defended ourselves. They came to enslave us. We said no." "What will you do now?" the speaker asked. Jake looked at his crew, at Amy with her bloodied face, at Lisa with her uniform torn, at all the humans who had fought and died for freedom. "Now," Jake said, "now we take everything they tried to steal from us, and then we take everything they have." The message from Jake Morrison reached Earth in 12 hours. Every screen on the planet showed the same thing. The recording of the Vormak laughing at humanity. The documents planning Earth's enslavement. The truth about the 60% of the fleet that had died for nothing. In New York, people stopped in the streets to watch. In Beijing, workers left their desks to stare at screens. In Mumbai, mothers held their children closer as they learned about the plans to separate families. The whole world learned the truth at the same moment, but something strange happened. There was no panic, no riots, no chaos. Instead, there was silence. Then, without anyone giving an order, people started going back to work. But not to their normal jobs. They went to the factories. They went to the shipyards. They went to the mines on Mars and the Moon. Within 1 hour, every factory on Earth was running. Workers who had been preparing to evacuate stayed at their posts. They didn't ask for extra pay. They didn't ask how long they would need to work. They just worked. Humanity had been betrayed, and everyone understood what that meant. On the Moon, at Lunar Command, Jake Morrison stood with his team in the war room. The base was half destroyed from recent attacks, but it still worked. The walls were cracked and sometimes the lights flickered, but it was home to humanity's last hope. Dr. Carl Williams was there. He was 50 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been studying Vormak technology since the Alliance began. Now he stood in front of a holographic display showing a Vormak battleship. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the ship's shield generator. "They use quantum crystalline matrices, very advanced, very powerful, but also very stupid." "How?" asked Jake. Carl smiled. It was the first time Jake had seen him smile in days. They all use the same frequency. Every ship, every shield. The same exact frequency. If we can break into one, we can break into all of them. Can we do it in 72 hours? 60, Carl said. We can do it in 60. Commander Lisa Chen was working with the military teams. She had pulled up a map of the solar system. Red dots showed enemy positions. Blue dots showed human ships. There were many more red dots than blue. "We have 40% of our original fleet," she reported. 400 ships that can fight. They have 3,000. "Numbers don't matter if they can't use their ships," Amy Foster said. She had been working nonstop for 12 hours. Her eyes were red, but her mind was sharp. I've been building something, a virus, but not like any computer virus we've used before. She showed them her work on the main screen. It looked like a living thing, constantly changing and adapting. I call it Deadbolt. It's made from their own code, so their systems won't recognize it as foreign. Once it's in their network, it will spread to every connected system. What will it do? Jake asked. Amy's smile was dark. Everything. Navigation will fail, weapons will fire randomly, life support will shut down, doors will lock, their ships will become prisons. How do we get it into their systems? That's the beautiful part, Amy said. We've been docking with their ships for 3 years, fixing them, upgrading them. I've had Deadbolt sleeping in their systems for 6 months. I just need to wake it up. Admiral Sam Rodriguez entered the room. His face was grim. I've been talking to the colonies. Mars is sending every fighter they have. The asteroid miners are converting their ships into weapons. Even the science stations are preparing to fight. It won't be enough, Lisa said. Not in a straight fight. Then we don't fight straight, Jake said. He looked at the map. They expect us to defend Earth, to make our last stand here. But what if we don't? He pointed to various points in space. For the past month we've been evacuating civilians, but our ships haven't just been moving people. They've been placing something else. Lisa's eyes widened. The gravitational mines from the Jupiter project. Jake nodded. 200 of them, invisible to sensors, placed at every jump point in the system. When the Zalathi try to run, and they will try to run, they'll find out why humans invented these weapons. The room was quiet as everyone understood the plan. It was dangerous, it was crazy, but it might work. There's more, Jake said. He turned to Amy. Tell them about the diplomatic meetings. Amy pulled up another file. For the past month, we've had peace talks with the Vormak. Lots of meetings, lots of handshakes, lots of shared data pads and gift exchanges. She held up a tiny device, no bigger than a grain of rice. Each handshake, each data pad, each gift. They all carried millions of these nanobots, dormant but already inside every Vormak ship that sent a diplomat. My God, someone whispered. We've been planning this for a month? No, Jake said. We've been hoping for peace for a month. But we've also been preparing for betrayal. The Vormak aren't the only ones who can lie. On Earth, the factories had produced something incredible. In just 24 hours they had built new weapons, not many, but they didn't need many. These weapons were designed for one purpose, to punch through shields that had failed. The people of Earth weren't soldiers, but they were angry. Teachers, doctors, farmers, store clerks, they all volunteered. They would crew the emergency ships. They would man the ground defenses. They would fight with whatever they had. A message came from the Vormak. Ambassador Vekral appeared on screen, his crystalline face reflecting the lights of his bridge. Humans, you have 48 hours remaining. We encourage you to use this time to prepare for a peaceful transition. Resistance will only increase suffering. Jake opened a channel to respond. His face was calm. Ambassador, we're using the time. Thank you for the suggestion. Vekral seemed confused by the calm response. You understand that your defeat is certain? I understand many things, Jake said. I understand that you've been planning this for years. I understand that you think we're weak because we trusted you. I understand that you've already divided up our world among yourselves. Then you understand wisdom, Vekral said. I also understand something else, Jake continued. You gave us access to your ships. You let us study your technology. You showed us your tactics. You taught us how you think. That was very generous of you. For the first time, Vekral looked uncertain. What are you saying? I'm saying thank you, Jake replied. Thank you for the education. We've been excellent students. In 48 hours, you'll see what we've learned. He cut the transmission. Around him, his team continued their work. They had 48 hours left. The Vormak fleet was already moving toward Earth, 3,000 ships confident in their victory. Dr. Carl Williams had finished the weapon modifications. The new missiles would work only once, but once would be enough. They were designed to Exploit the exact weakness in Vormak shields that he had discovered. Amy Foster ran one last check on Deadbolt. The virus was perfect. It would sleep until she sent the activation signal. Then it would wake up in every Vormak and Zalathi ship at the same moment. Lisa Chen coordinated with the human fleet. Every captain knew their role. They would look like they were preparing for a defensive battle. They would let the enemy get close, very close, close enough that there would be no escape when the trap was sprung. On Earth, children were taken to shelters, but instead of fear, there was determination in their eyes. They had heard what the Vormak planned for them. They understood that their parents were fighting for their freedom. The hours passed quickly. The Vormak fleet grew closer. Long range. Sensors showed them in perfect formation. They were so confident that they hadn't even raised their shields yet. Why waste energy on shields when fighting an already beaten enemy? 24 hours remained. The human fleet took positions around Earth. They looked scattered, disorganized, desperate. Exactly what the Vormak expected to see. Behind them, Earth continued to prepare. Every satellite had been converted into a weapon. Every space station had been armed. Even the commercial shipping vessels had guns welded to their hulls. 12 hours remained. The Vormak fleet was close enough to see with telescopes. Their crystalline ships caught the sunlight and sparkled like diamonds. Beautiful and deadly. They sent another message demanding surrender. Jake didn't respond this time. 6 hours remained. Amy Foster sat at her console, finger hovering over the activation button for Deadbolt. Around her, dozens of technicians waited for her signal. They had one chance. If the virus failed, humanity was finished. 3 hours remained. The gravitational mines were armed. The modified missiles were loaded. The nanobots waited for their wake-up call. Every human who could hold a weapon was at their post. 1 hour remained. The Vormak fleet had surrounded Earth. Their weapons were charging. Ambassador Veckrel sent one final message. "This is your last chance, humans. Surrender now or face the consequences." Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, renamed Retribution just an hour ago. His crew was ready. His people were ready. Earth was ready. All ships, he said into the communication system. You know what to do. For Earth. For our children. For humanity. He looked at Amy Foster. She nodded and pressed the button. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. The walls around him were made of strange crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. The room was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Hundreds of aliens from different species sat in rows of seats that went up like stairs. They all looked down at him and the other humans. The Vormak sat in the best seats. They were tall, about 8 feet, with skin that looked like glass. When they moved, their bodies caught the light and threw tiny rainbows on the walls. They had been humanity's friends for 3 years. At least, that's what Jake had believed until today. Jake's hands shook as he held the datapad. He read the numbers again, hoping they would change. They didn't. 60% of Earth's space fleet was gone. Destroyed. More than 10,000 human soldiers were dead. They had died in the Battle of Kepler 442 just 2 weeks ago. That battle was supposed to be a victory. The humans had held their position for 6 days, fighting against impossible odds. The enemy Zalathi had sent wave after wave of ships. The humans had fought them all, waiting for their Vormak allies to arrive with reinforcements. The Vormak never came. Commander Lisa Chen walked quickly across the crystal floor. Her boots made sharp clicking sounds that echoed in the huge room. Her face was white, and Jake could see fear in her eyes. That scared him more than anything. Lisa was never afraid. She handed him another datapad without saying a word. Her hand touched his for a moment, and he felt how cold her fingers were. Jake looked at the screen and his stomach dropped. He read it once, then again, then a third time. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. The Vormak had been talking to the Zalathi in secret. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of sending humans to die while they made deals with the enemy. The Vormak were going to get mining rights in human space. 30 systems that belonged to Earth would be given to them. The Zalathi would get the outer colonies where 2 million humans lived. But that wasn't the worst part. Jake's hand tightened on the datapad until his knuckles turned white. There was a document, signed by both Vormak and Zalathi leadership. Earth itself was listed as a resource world. The population would become workers. The document used the EI word workers, but Jake knew what it really meant. Slaves. There were details that made him sick. Children would be taken from their parents at age 5. They would be raised in training centers to be perfect workers. Cities would be destroyed to make room for mining equipment. The oceans would be drained for their minerals. In 50 years, Earth would be a dead rock in space. Admiral Sam Rodriguez joined them. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had served in Earth's Navy for 40 years. He had seen 3 wars. But Jake could see that this had shaken even him. "There's more," the Admiral said quietly. He played an audio file on his datapad, keeping the volume low so only they could hear. It was a recording from a Vormak military meeting. Jake recognized the voice of General Krex, who had shared drinks with him just last month. The General was laughing. "The humans are perfect," he said in his strange, musical voice. "They trust everyone. They want to be liked. They actually believe we're their friends. When we spring the trap, they won't even understand what happened." Another voice, this one belonging to Ambassador Veckrel, responded. "My favorite part is how eager they are to die for us. We tell them it's for freedom and justice, and they throw their lives away. We don't even have to force them. They volunteer." The room erupted in laughter. Jake counted at least 12 different Vormak voices, all laughing at humanity's trust, all laughing at the humans who had died believing they were fighting for something good. Lieutenant Amy Foster appeared at Jake's elbow. She was young, only 25, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. She was the youngest person ever to serve on a command ship, but she had earned it. Her mind worked in ways that amazed even the scientists back on Earth. "Captain, I've been going through their technical data," she whispered. "The stuff they gave us for the Alliance. I found something." She showed him her discovery on her personal tablet. For 3 years, human engineers had been working on Vormak ships. They had been fixing them, upgrading them, learning from them. The Vormak had allowed it because they thought humans were too stupid to understand their technology. They were wrong. Amy had found patterns in their shield systems, weaknesses in their computers, backdoors in their security. The Vormak had given humanity the keys to their entire fleet without knowing it. "Can we use this?" Jake asked. Amy nodded. Her eyes were bright with excitement and anger. "Give me 72 hours and a team. I can turn their own ships against them." Jake looked around the council chamber. Ambassador Veckrel was walking toward them. His crystalline face seemed to be smiling, though it was hard to tell with the Vormak. He moved with the confidence of someone who had already won. Behind Veckrel, Jake could see other Vormak officials. They were all watching the humans with what looked like amusement. They knew. They all knew what was coming, and they were enjoying watching the humans figure it out. "Captain Morrison," Veckrel said when he reached them. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "I have an official message for Earth's government." Jake wanted to punch the alien's glass face. He wanted to scream. He wanted to pull out his sidearm and start shooting. Instead, he stood straight and kept his face calm. "Go ahead, Ambassador. The Vormak-Zalathi alliance requires Earth's complete surrender within 72 hours. Your fleet will stand down. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your population will be registered for work assignments. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." The words hung in the air. Around them, Jake noticed, other species in the council were watching. None of them looked surprised. They had known too. Everyone had known except the humans. "Is that all?" Jake asked, his voice steady. Veckrel tilted his head. "You seem very calm for someone whose world is about to be enslaved." Jake smiled. It was a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just thinking, Ambassador. You've taught us so much about your technology, your warfare, your tactics. For 3 years, you've been our teachers. And you have been adequate students, Feckrel said, his tone dismissive. Yes, Jake agreed. We've been very good students, and now it's time for the final exam. He turned to his team. We're leaving. Now. As they walked out of the council chamber, Jake could hear the Vormak laughing behind them. Let them laugh, he thought. They had taught humanity their way of war. They had shown humans every weakness in their technology. They had given humanity the tools for their own destruction. The Vormak thought they had 72 hours to accept Earth's surrender. Jake knew they actually had 72 hours to prepare Earth's revenge. The betrayers had made one fatal mistake. They had taught humanity exactly how to destroy them. Back on the human ship, Jake called a meeting of all senior officers. The room was small and crowded. Everyone's face showed the same mix of shock and anger. They played us, someone said. They used us, another added. Yes, Jake agreed. They did, and now we're going to return the favor. We have 72 hours. In that time, we're going to turn their trap into ours. He looked at each face in the room. These were good people, honest people, the kind of people the Vormak had laughed at for being too trusting. Send a message to Earth, Jake ordered. Tell them everything. Tell them about the betrayal. Tell them about the plans for our children. And tell them we're not surrendering. We're going to take everything the Vormak have. Everything they are. Everything they ever hoped to be. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Amy Foster spoke up. Captain, what about the other species? The ones who knew and said nothing? Jake thought about it. They made their choice. They chose to watch while we were betrayed. Now they can watch while we take our revenge. The meeting ended, and everyone went to work. They had 72 hours to save humanity. 72 hours to turn from victims into victors. The Vormak had taught them well. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans did to those who betrayed their trust.